When the billionaire came home unexpectedly, he faced a shocking truth about his son and the maid. The grand mansion loomed silently against the moonlit sky, its polished glass windows casting eerie reflections as Luke Harrington returned home after years abroad. His heart raced. He had thought of nothing but this moment for months. But nothing could prepare him for the chaos awaiting inside. As he swung the heavy oak door open, the sight was shocking. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of burnt casserole hung low like a dark cloud. It was as if he had stumbled into a scene ripped straight from a thriller. In the dim light of the grand foyer, shadows danced around the walls, their shapes morphing like ghosts. A shriek echoed from the kitchen, and Luke's heart plummeted. He pushed past the gathering dust of his absence and rushed forward. His head spun with questions. What was happening? Who was home? He needed to know. There in the kitchen, a revelation struck like a thunderbolt. His son, Oliver, stood wide-eyed with horror, clutching a broken plate as if it were a lifeline. Blood dripped from his fingers, blending into the remnants of the shattered dinnerware. "Dad, you're home," he gasped, his voice cracking, a mix of relief and fear. At that moment, the maid, Clara, hovered near the sink, her cheeks flushed with panic. She met Luke's eyes, and shame flickered in her gaze. They both knew something was amiss, something unspoken that twisted the air between them like a noose. Luke's mind raced. The last thing he expected was his son in such a predicament. Blood on his hands, fear in his eyes. But what had happened here? Why did Clara look like she had seen a ghost? Had there been an accident? The energy was electric, thick with unverbalized secrets. He could feel the weight of uncertainty crushing his chest. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But the moment of distraction was brief. Luke's attention snapped back to Clara, who suddenly stepped forward, her voice trembling. "We need to talk, Mr. Harrington. It's about Oliver and the reason I'm here." Panic surged again, making his heart pound against his ribcage. What was she hiding? What truth was about to unravel? As the pieces slowly began to fit together, a chilling thought struck him. Was it possible that his homecoming would lead to unraveling the very fabric of their lives? He felt the world shift beneath his feet, and the room spun with possibilities, dark and vivid. What if the truth was more terrible than he imagined? What awaited him just beyond the veil of uncertainty? "Clara, what do you mean?" Luke's voice cracked, desperation seeping in. What's going on with Oliver? But Clara only shrank back, eyes darting wildly as if looking for a way out. She brushed her hands over her face, the horror of the situation seeping deeper than the blood on Oliver's fingers. "You need to sit down, there's so much you don't know," she finally murmured, trembling. Luke turned to Oliver, who looked as though he might crumble. "What happened? You're hurt." The sight of blood made Luke's heart thump violently in his chest, a primal fear taking hold. Whatever chaos had erupted while he was away, it was beyond anything he could comprehend. It's not what you think, Dad," Oliver protested, glancing nervously towards Clara. His face was pale, but the panic was evident, flooding his gaze. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to." Clara stepped forward, shaking her head as if trying to dispel an invisible shadow. "No, it wasn't just an accident. It's because of what happened before you got here and what I did." "What did you do?" Luke's pulse raced as his mind began to spiral. The tension in the room hung heavy and palpable, as though the walls were inching closer. Every moment spent waiting for an answer made the truth loom larger. "There was a fight," Oliver interjected, his voice barely a whisper. "It got out of hand. Clara, she was just trying to protect me." It It was all a mistake, I swear. Protect? The word echoed loudly in Luke's mind, twisting unexpectedly. Protect from whom? What could possibly be going on that needed protection? Silence enveloped the room, stretching uncomfortably, but all Luke heard was the frantic beating of his heart. The air felt thicker now, thick with confusion and hidden fears. He could sense that whatever was between Oliver and Clara was more than just an incident. It was a secret that gnawed at their sanity. I can't believe you'd risk everything. Clara's voice cracked through the silence, hot tears glistening in her eyes. This is bigger than us. I never wanted to drag you into it. Luke's frustration twisted into something darker. What do you mean, drag me into what? I just got home. Home. And now I find my son bleeding and a shattered plate on the floor. And you're talking about danger? Listen, please, you have to believe us. Oliver begged, stepping closer, his hands still stained crimson. We didn't want any of this. It was supposed to be a normal night, like any other. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, the sound rattling the heavy silence in the kitchen. All three of them froze, fear coursing through their veins. Luke instinctively turned towards the sound, eyes wide, heart pounding in his ears. What was that? Clara gasped, retreating a step as shadows began to inch toward them from the hallway. Stay here, Luke barked, his voice reflexively firm as he took slow steps toward the doorway. Every instinct in him screamed that something truly sinister lay on the other side. Whatever had shattered their peace was still lurking, waiting to reveal itself. He held his breath as he moved closer, wrestling with the weight of uncertainty swirling in his chest. Would he uncover another truth that led to more chaos? Or was something even more terrifying coming for him, for Oliver, for Clara? And just as he reached for the door, poised to confront whatever lay beyond, darkness surged forward, a shadow flickering outside, cloaked in secrecy. The moment cracked open with tense possibility. What would he find? A new ally or a deadly enemy? As Luke's fingers touched the cold metal of the doorknob, his heart raced with one looming thought. Could he handle the truth that was about to be unveiled? The doorknob felt slick under Luke's palm, each breath weighing heavier than the last. He hesitated, straining to hear anything beyond the doorway, but the silence was deafening. That precious stillness shattered as another loud crash echoed, drawing him out of his thoughts. Heart racing, he turned back to Clara and Oliver, who stood wide-eyed, a mixture of fear and uncertainty gripping their faces. What was that? He whispered, urgency pouring from him. I don't know, Clara stammered, her body trembling as if she were about to shatter. It sounded like just stay. Luke snapped, cutting her off. He couldn't afford to think of the implications. He needed to act. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the doorknob tighter and flung the door open. The dim hallway stretched before him, shadows pooling around the corners. There was a heavy, unnatural silence now, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He peered into the darkness, squinting, trying to make out anything unusual. Then, the shape moved. A figure darted across the end of the hallway, just a flash, dark hair, a glimmer of steel in hand. Luke's stomach dropped, instinct screaming at him to run back, to protect his family. But he couldn't let fear paralyze him. He took one urgent step into the unknown, voice strong and commanding. Who's there? Only silence answered. Show yourself, he demanded, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Nothing. It felt as if the house was laughing at him, its secrets clinging to the walls, overwhelming him with a sense of dread. He turned, just for a moment, to see if Clara and Oliver were okay, but they were right behind him, eyes wide and panic etched across their faces. Then he saw it. A blood-spattered knife lay abandoned on the floor, glinting under the dim light, its silver surface reflecting ghostly images of their terrified expressions. What in God's name? Luke murmured, feeling his legs buckle, the weight of the night crashing into him. The knife spoke louder than any words ever could. A wave of nausea swept over him, threatening to bring him to his knees. Oliver rushed forward, his face pale and eyes pleading. Dad, it's not what you think, I swear. Then what is it, Oliver? What is happening? Luke's voice trembled. Desperation veiled his logic. Knowing his son had blood on his hands, literal or metaphorical, it didn't matter. The connection made fear crawl beneath his skin. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated from a nearby room, shattering the fragile moment of contemplation. Luke's heart raced again, pulling him toward the sound. "Stay here," he barked. Despite the authority in his voice cracking, he stepped cautiously down the hallway, fueled by instinct more than reason. The air felt electric, charged with a danger he couldn't yet comprehend. As he neared the living room, the thudding escalated into frantic movement. He peeked around the doorframe and froze. A man was there, tall, imposing, and unmistakably dangerous. His anger radiated like heat from a fire, eyes stalking through the shadows as if he owned the darkness. Seething, he gripped a small object Luke couldn't quite make out. Luke's thoughts shot through his mind like lightning. Who was this man? What had he done to bring such chaos to his doorstep? "Stay back," Luke shouted, taking a step forward, a primal urge to protect his family surging through his veins. The man turned, a malevolent smile curving his lips. "You don't know what's about to happen, but your son does," he hissed, the promise of threat hanging heavy in the air between them. Luke's heart dropped, a shudder creeping through his spine. He fought for composure, forcing words past the lump in his throat. "What do you want?" The intruder laughed lightly, twisting the blade in his hand. "Let us just say, things are about to get very interesting." The man took a step closer, and in that moment, Luke knew everything was about to change forever. The fight for their lives had just begun, and the stakes were higher than he ever imagined. What was the connection between Oliver and this menacing stranger? The storm of truth was brewing, and Luke was about to be caught right in its eye. Would he be able to protect his family, or was he too late? Luke's eyes bore into the stranger, the blade glinting ominously in the half-light. His chest felt like it was constricting, each desperate breath a reminder of the danger overtaking his home. "What do you want?" he repeated, urgency sharpening each syllable. "I want what's mine," the intruder replied, his smile fading as his tone grew dangerously flat. "And your son knows all about it." Luke's gaze snapped to Oliver. His son's face was pale, guilt etched deep into his features. "Oliver." What did he mean? Panic clawed at his throat, choking off rationality. I don't know," Oliver stammered, backing away slightly, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Dad, I swear I had nothing to do with this." With each passing second, the atmosphere thickened with tension, pressing against Luke's chest. The intruder took another step forward, eyes glinting with malicious intent. "Oh, but he does believe me. All those secrets he's been holding, he thinks he can keep you safe. But this isn't just about him." The words hung in the air like a sickening mist. Luke's mind raced, trying to connect the dots of confusion. Secrets? What secrets did Oliver have that were worth threatening their lives over? The thought spiraled into dread. He pushed it aside, focusing on the current threat before him. "Get away from my son." He took a step, fortified by rage. The man laughed, an unsettling sound reverberating through the room. "You can't protect him, he's already a part of this mess." He gestured toward the knife on the floor, their bloodied nightmare become real. He might as well be holding this very blade. "Stop it," Clara screamed, stepping forward with an unexpected surge of courage. "You don't know anything about my son. You don't know us. Am I wrong, then?" He gazed at her with cruel mockery. "Doesn't matter. I'll get what I came for one way or another." He held the knife up as if offering it to Luke. "Leave this house," Luke barked, anger fueling his voice. But with the threat looming, each word felt like a futile attempt to ward off a storm. The laughter faded, replaced with icy certainty. "You think you can simply tell me to leave? This is bigger than you. Bigger than your little family drama." Before he finished, the sound of something crashing shattered the tense silence like glass breaking. Luke's heart seized. He turned toward the commotion, alarmed. Had someone else breached their sanctuary? "Stay right where you are," the man warned, his grip tightening around the knife, dangerously poised as he surveyed the room. Suddenly, another loud crash punctuated the air. This one shaking the walls. Came from behind Oliver, from the kitchen. Luke felt his heart drop, a visceral instinct pulling him to protect Clara and Oliver. If there was another presence in the house, they needed to get out of there fast. "Move!" Luke shouted, grabbing Oliver's arm to pull him back. But instead of retreating, his son hesitated, his eyes darting between Luke and the intruder. "No, Dad. I can help." "Help?" Luke felt a surge of disbelief mixed with anger. "You think standing here will help? You're not thinking clearly." But Oliver's gaze locked onto the man, a strange determination igniting within the chaos. "I can stop him. I know things that could change everything." He stepped forward, a defiant command in his posture. Luke's breath hitched. "No, don't." In that moment, the intruder seized the opportunity, lunging forward with predatory speed. "You should have kept your mouth shut, kid." The blade flashed through the air. Everything felt suspended in a heartbeat, a breath held tightly by fear. Clara screamed. Luke charged. Time slowed. Would he reach his son in time, or was Oliver about to pay for the secrets he dared to unveil? Nothing could prepare him for the truth that lay ahead. But as the reality of that moment crashed into him, it became startlingly clear. The real battle was just beginning. What had Oliver done, and how deep did the secrets run? Luke's feet pounded against the hardwood floor as panic surged within him. The world around him faded into a blur of shadows and urgency. He lunged for Oliver, desperately trying to cover the distance between them, but the intruder was faster. "Get away from him!" Luke roared, his voice cracking with adrenaline. He could feel his heart thumping in his ears, drowning out everything else. The intruder aimed the knife not at Oliver but at Luke, a wicked grin stretching across his face. "You think you can save him? You can't even save yourself." Luke barely registered the words as he closed the distance. Time felt as if it were splitting apart, stretching longer than reality. Behind him, Clara was still screaming, her voice high with desperation. "Stand back!" Oliver shouted as he threw himself in front of his father, eyes blazing with an intensity Luke had never seen before. "I'll handle this." "Oliver, no." Luke's voice surged, filled with dread. He reached out again, but the space felt infinite. In that heartbeat, Clara moved. The determined mother leapt forward, grabbing a nearby chair and slamming it into the intruder's face. The man's head snapped back, surprise flashing across his features. The knife slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. Luke's blood ran cold. For a moment, silence fell like a curtain. There was no sound except the heavy breathing that filled the air. Without thinking, Luke surged forward, pushing Oliver aside. As the intruder staggered back, Clara swung again, determined not to lose their fragile chance at survival. The chair broke apart, splinters flying as it connected with the man's ribs, sending him crashing against the kitchen counter. Using the moment to gather his bearings, Luke grabbed the fallen knife. He felt the cold steel tremble in his hands. However, a sliver of hesitation snaked through him. He had never been one to resort to violence. Yet the malignant threat before him was forcing his hand. Behind him, Oliver scrambled to regain his balance, eyes wide with shock. "Dad, you have to listen to me," he began, but Luke silenced him with a sharp glance. "Not now," Luke hissed, focusing intently on the intruder, who was recovering far too quickly. The man snarled, wiping blood from his mouth. "You think this is over?" He spat, his gaze shifting between Luke and Clara. "Your family is tied to these secrets deeper than you realize." "What secrets?" Clara shouted. "What the hell are you talking about?" The intruder cackled, the sound merciless. "Your son is a bigger player than you think. Just wait until you learn the truth." Before Luke could react, the intruder lunged again, catching him off guard. Luke barely sidestepped, but the knife swiped through the air, narrowly missing him. The world spun again, chaos erupting around them as Clara cried out, "Dad, look out!" Oliver's voice rang out, filled with a mix of fear and urgency. Luke turned just as the man struck again, this time landing a glancing blow across Luke's arm. Pain exploded, fire racing through him, but adrenaline dulled it. Get away from my family. Luke gritted his teeth, summoning every ounce of strength as he countered, driving the knife home. The blade connected, and time stood still. Everything froze in that moment of impending reality. The intruder's eyes widened in disbelief, shock rippling across his features. That's all you have? Pathetic. Luke's heart sank. What had he done? With a shuddering breath, he felt the weight of his actions crash over him. But they weren't finished yet. Above all the chaos, he still heard Oliver's voice, fractured with danger. Please tell me this isn't happening. Dad. Glancing around, Luke realized the truth wasn't just about the man looming over them. It lived within this house, within his son. Questions surged like an impending storm. How deep did this go? And in the tension of that frozen moment, a new presence appeared, heavy footsteps marching toward them from the kitchen. Luke's heart plummeted. What now? Was their nightmare truly just beginning? The heavy footsteps beat a steady rhythm, echoing ominously through the kitchen as dread pooled in Luke's stomach. He glanced at Clara, her eyes wide with terror, and Oliver, who was frozen in place, caught in a web of fear and confusion. Time slipped like sand between their fingers as anticipation thrummed in the air. The intruder staggered back against the counter, pain flickering across his features, but his grin persisted, twisted and unyielding. You really think you can fight this? He sneered, pushing himself upright. You don't even know what you're doing. But before Luke could react, the looming figure at the kitchen entrance stepped into view. It was a tall, robust man, his face partially hidden in shadow. The tightness in Luke's chest intensified, squeezing the air from his lungs. Had help arrived, or was this yet another danger slinking in through the cracks of their terror? Who are you? Luke demanded, instinctively raising the knife at his side, its blade glinting under the dim light. The newcomer raised his hands slightly, palms out as if trying to project calm. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I came to get away from my family. Luke's voice cut through the man's assurance, his pulse hammering in a frenzied rhythm. Enough, the man replied sharply. I'm not your enemy. As if jolted, Clara stepped forward, her motherly instincts overpowering her shock. Then tell us who you are. Her voice trembled, a blend of urgency and trepidation. James Porter, the man said, his tone firm yet cautious. I'm here because I need to warn you. Warn us? About what? Oliver shouted, fists clenched by his side, his voice cracking with frustration. That man, James gestured toward the intruder, who was now chuckling to himself. He's part of something much bigger, a web that stretches far beyond this moment. And your son, he's caught right in the middle of it. Luke felt the heat in his veins cool, unease blooming in its place. What do you mean? What do you know about Oliver? The intruder snickered, his expression a grotesque mask. Isn't it adorable? You think you can protect him? They'll use him against you, play you like a pawn. And you won't even see it coming. Shut up, Luke growled, stepping closer. But the man just tilted his head, looking almost amused. Dad, please. Oliver's voice sliced through the tension. What is he talking about? James took a cautious step forward, locking eyes with Luke. You need to listen to me. Oliver is targeted because he possesses information or ability. I can help shield him if you let me. But time is running out. Luke's heart raced. Every fiber of him screamed to protect Oliver, but the fog of confusion pressed down hard. He glanced back at Clara, who looked equally lost, her expression filled with both doubt and fear. Why should we trust you? Clara's voice trembled as she stepped beside Luke, her protective instincts on full display. You could be just as dangerous. I'm not your enemy, I swear. I've been watching this all unfold, James insisted, looking nervous but determined. The people behind this, they won't stop until they get what they want. Before Luke could process his mounting anxiety, the intruder suddenly lunged forward, breaking through any temporary truce. The air shifted as he charged at James, a snarl perched on his lips, driven by desperation. Stop! Luke screamed as he thrust the knife forward, but the movement was more reflex than thought. Chaos erupted again. Clara shouted, Oliver shrieked, and the knife swung. Everything sped up. But in that swirl of motion, a single realization crystallized in Luke's mind like a shard of ice. What if the truth was far more dangerous than he ever imagined? He felt the world tilt once more, the confrontation spiraling out of control. As he struggled to maintain his grip on the crumbling sanity around him, another set of footsteps echoed just beyond the doorway. A voice called out, piercing the tension. "Luke, are you in here?" Panic seized him momentarily. Were they too late? Who else was entering this nightmare? And just like that, the stakes had risen yet again. The room was a battlefield of heightened emotions, the air thick with confusion and fear. Luke's heart raced, hammering in his chest as he swung his gaze toward the doorway, the voice still reverberating in his ears. "Luke, are you in here?" It was a shrill cry that cut through the chaos, reverberating like a gunshot in the cramped kitchen. Hope mingled with dread as he exchanged quick, terrified glances with Clara and Oliver. Was it help? Or was it another foray into the abyss? "Who's there?" Luke shouted back, his pulse thrumming in his ears. Clara moved closer to Oliver, instinctively shielding him as her eyes darted toward the darkened entrance. "Mom! Dad!" The voice came again, clearer this time. It was Sarah, their daughter, the one missing during this nightmare. "No!" The intruder spat, a wicked glare melting his comical demeanor. "Don't let her in. She'll be part of this mess too." Luke barely registered those words. The desperate plea from his daughter twisted like a knife in his gut. He had to protect her. He had to keep her away from whatever lurking terror had invaded their lives. "Stay back, Sarah," Luke shouted, but his voice cracked with fear. He was torn between duty and instinct, and the weight of that decision crushed him. In those fleeting seconds, James sprung into action. "We have to get out of here, now." He moved toward the door, his expression sharp with urgency. "If she comes in, let her in. We can't leave her out there," Luke yelled, his grip on the knife tightening. But before another plea could escape him, the intruder lunged again, catching Luke off guard. The knife was gone from his grasp in an instant, clattering to the floor. A maelstrom of fists and furious breaths consumed them, twisting the room into disarray. They were trapped in a cacophony of anger, desperation coating every move. "What are you doing?" Clara screamed as she grappled with the man, her maternal instinct igniting a fierce adrenaline within her. "We're losing control," James shouted, rushing to help. He whipped around to face Oliver, pleading with his eyes. "Get ready to run, kid." Just as Luke began to glimpse the desperate path they had to take, there was a deafening crash from behind him. The kitchen door slammed open, and Sarah stood there, face pale and wide-eyed, taking in the chaos unfolding in the room. "Dad, what's going on?" Her innocence felt like the last light in an ever-darkening room. "Get out," Luke cried, panic taking hold of him. "Go back, please." But the intruder turned at the sound of Sarah's voice, eyes flaring with sinister hunger as he abandoned Luke's split-second grasp and charged toward her. "No!" Clara screamed, flinging herself between her daughter and the approaching threat. Luke couldn't breathe. Every ounce of fear burst into a paralyzing dread as he lunged forward, his heart racing with the primal instinct of a parent protecting their young. He wasn't just flailing. He was fighting for their lives. Then came a sudden, resounding crack. Something snapped, and the very foundations of their reality split wide open. In that instant, Luke caught a glimpse of something glittering beneath a pile of debris, a revolver, forgotten and dusty from years of disuse. As he reached for it, a chilling thought passed through him like a cold wind. If the horrors chasing them were as powerful as James claimed, could he use it to protect his family, or would it be the very thing that destroyed them? The intruder's wild laughter spun around him like a noose, tightening with every moment. Luke grasped the gun, heart hammering, and wondered if he was on the brink of salvation or doom. "Luke!" Sarah cried again, but the moment he turned, he felt the ground shift beneath them as another tremor of chaos began to unfold. What had he unleashed, and who would truly pay for it? The gun felt heavy in Luke's hands, an anchor in the storm raging around him. Adrenaline surged through his body, intertwining with panic, rendering his thoughts chaotic. Clara was still grappling with the intruder, her eyes fierce yet tinged with terror. "Get back! Get back!" she yelled, but the man's malice was tangible, raw. He twisted and turned, trying to shake her loose. "Clara!" Luke cried, the word bursting from his throat. "Get Oliver to safety. Dad, I want to leave you." Sarah's terrified voice punctured the moment. Her wide eyes darted between her mother and the threat looming over them. The intruder's laughter ricocheted in Luke's mind, each sound a reminder of their precarious situation. The floor creaked ominously beneath their frantic movements. With a swift glance, Luke assessed the jagged pieces of a shattered chair scattered nearby. Inspiration sparked. If words weren't enough, maybe distraction would buy them time. "Look!" Luke shouted, pointing at the broken window, a desperate attempt to draw the intruder's attention. "Someone's out there." The man hesitated, his gaze shifting just long enough for Clara to thrust a hard elbow into his gut, knocking the wind out of him. She took advantage, shoving him back. "Now, Sarah, run," Luke ordered, wrestling with his instincts. He felt like a puppet in a terrifying play where everyone teetered on the brink of disaster. Sarah's feet hesitated, but Oliver tugged at her arm, his eyes shining with unspoken terror, and that seemed to break the trance. "Go!" Luke screamed, seizing their moment as the intruder staggered. For a split second, the panic in the room froze. Clara lunged toward the living room, dragging their adversary with her, while James fought to gain control over the situation. Luke gripped the gun tighter, feeling the cold steel bite into his palm. The weight of it was not just physical. It felt like the burden of every decision he had ever made for this family. But then chaos erupted again. The intruder, fueled by rage, shook off Clara with brute force, sending her crashing into the wall. Luke's heart sank as he watched her struggle to regain her footing. "Clara!" he shouted, terrified that their friend and fierce protector might be lost in the fray. Everything within him screamed to act, but the gun felt both liberating and suffocating. A wild card that could flip their reality yet again. "Please don't hurt them," Luke managed to plead, aiming the gun toward the intruder, hoping the sight of it would hold him at bay. But the darkness in the man's eyes only seemed to grow more potent. A sneer split the intruder's face. "You think that piece of metal can stop me? You have no idea what I'm capable of." The words dripped with an unsettling confidence that rattled Luke. It echoed the fear creeping around the corners of his mind. He had to reclaim control. He couldn't let the evil thrive amidst his family's struggle. As he backed toward the doorway this time, he felt the tremor of the ground again, and not just from the chaos inside. Something ominous trembled outside, as if the very world was contorting with their struggle, amplifying the fear in his chest. "Get to the car," James cried, his voice slicing through the air, filled with urgency. "We have to drive away." Clara nodded but didn't take her eyes off the intruder, who was regaining his composure. "No, we can't leave Luke behind," she protested, the love in her voice cut through him like a razor. "Well, what do we do then?" James shouted, stress sparking in his tone as the urgency mounted. Luke didn't have an answer. The air felt electric, alive with the threat of violence. Time stretched and warped, every heartbeat echoing the possibilities of ruin and rescue. "Let them go," Luke found himself shouting, raising the revolver higher. He could feel Clara's fear wrapped around him, but the strength of protecting his family surged forward. The intruder's laughter bounced back, laced with malice and disbelief. "You think you'd use that on me?" And then it struck Luke, the sudden, horrifying realization. The man wasn't just a stranger. He was someone with ties to their past, dark threads woven into a tapestry of violence they had yet to comprehend. "Who are you?" Luke demanded, the words escaping him like a gasp, the answer hanging in the air like a sword poised to fall. The man smirked, a chilling glint in his eyes. "You really don't remember, do you?" Mouth going dry, Luke felt the world tilt once more. What more did this monster know? And how deep did their history run? Outside, shadows stretched like dark tendrils, and the shuddering ground hinted at unspeakable horrors waiting to be unveiled. Would they ever find their way to safety? Or was the real nightmare just beginning? Luke's heart raced like a wild drum, each beat threatening to drown out reason. The intruder's words hung in the air like a noose, tightening around his thoughts as the chaos around him transformed into a blur. He could feel Clara's anger and fear, a tether that seemed almost tangible. It was a spiral of tension, rising like smoke in a fire, and he had never felt so unmoored. "Tell me your name," Luke shouted, his voice betraying the tremor clawing at the edges of his composure. "Why, you wouldn't remember," the man taunted, brushing off Luke's demand with a casualness that set his teeth on edge. He stepped forward, inching closer, his presence a looming shadow that threatened to swallow them whole. Clara, still recovering her breath, resumed a defensive stance, and her blazing spirit ignited something within Luke. He tightened his grip on the gun, fingers trembling. This was not just a weapon. It felt like the only barrier separating his family from the encroaching darkness. "Oliver, Sarah, back to the hall," Clara shouted, pulling her children behind her, the instinct to protect radiating from her. The children's frightened faces anchored Luke for a heartbeat. The peering innocence of their eyes filled him with both fierce resolve and gut-wrenching dread. The ground beneath them trembled again, reverberating like an ominous heartbeat. Was this an echo from outside, or did it stem from the core of their unfolding nightmare? "Your little family won't escape," the man sneered, laughing as if savoring the sinking despair he was delivering. "You've made it so unbearably easy for me. You think you can scare us?" Clara's voice cut through the suffocating weight of dread. "We won't let you take us down. Such fire. I do love a challenge," he smirked, eyes gleaming with a sinister excitement. He lunged, breaking the invisible barrier, but Clara intercepted, shoulder-checking him with surprising force. But in that moment, Luke noticed something fear mingled with desperation flared in the intruder's eyes. It was almost imperceptible, but there nonetheless, like a crack forming in a facade. What did he fear? The fleeting distraction was all Clara needed. She maneuvered like a whirlwind, connecting a swift kick that sent the intruder reeling. Luke saw their chance. The door was wide open, freedom just a sprint away. "Go," he bellowed, urgency cracking his tone. But then the world shifted again. The ground heaved beneath their feet, shaking them to their core, and shadows deepened as something colossal began to shift outside. Was it just the tremors? Or was it something waiting to be unleashed? "Luke!" Clara yelled, eyes locked on the intruder, who was now scrambling to regain his composure. The pulse of power he had exuded was wavering, and a flicker of doubt crept into his demeanor. "Run, Clara!" Luke shouted through clenched teeth, his instincts roaring to protect, to fight. "Get the kids!" Clara extended her arm, ready to dash toward the safety of the hallway. But Luke stood rooted, a powerful instinct anchoring him as he locked eyes with the intruder. "What do you want?" he asked, voice steadier now, belying the storm inside. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough," the man said with a malevolent grin. "But let us just say you owe me a debt, one you can't pay." "Debt?" Luke's mind raced as each word fell like a stone into the still water of their reality, creating ripples of fear. What could he owe this monster? James was now trying to restrain the chaotic fallout of moments spiraling. His brows knitted in confusion at what Luke had just learned. The air felt thick, pressing against them. And then, like thunder rumbling across a chasm, the walls shifted. The shadows outside twisted oddly, blending into a monstrous form, as the intruder's laughter twisted into a haunting echo that seemed almost warning. "Look outside," Clara shouted suddenly, her voice cracking the tension. "Something's coming." Luke spun to see a mass forming at the doorway. Something larger than their fear was approaching, something that promised destruction wrapped in the guise of salvation. What had they unleashed? Or worse, who was coming for them? The true horror, it seemed, was only just beginning. The chaos surged around Luke like a violent tide as he faced down the intruder, the once polished bones of his life now splintered and cracking in horror. Clara's fierce resolve motivated him, the flicker of fear in his children's eyes igniting a primal fire in his chest. There was no turning back. "Drop it!" he shouted at the intruder, whose expression darkened at the challenge. Luke took a deep breath, steadied his shaking hands, and tightened his grip on the revolver. The cold steel felt like the last remnant of sanity in a world spiraling out of control. "Luke, hurry!" About to James tried to warn, but before he could finish, the intruder lunged again, propelled by something deeper than anger. The air tensed as Clara moved, redirecting the unpredictable threat with a ferocity that surprised even Luke. It was pure instinct, a mother bear defending her cubs. Now was their chance. "Run!" Luke barked, urgency clawing at him. His gaze shot to the doorway. Shadows flickered in the dim light. Time felt thin, a fragile whisper. He could feel the ground quivering again, like the universe held its breath, ready to erupt. As Clara and the kids started to move, the intruder's eyes flashed with madness. "No, you're not escaping," he screamed, recklessly charging at them. Panic surged within Luke as he leaped forward, arms outstretched. "Get backs!" he bellowed, desperation fueling his adrenaline. Clara grasped Oliver and Sarah's arms, ready to dart into the hallway, but the intruder was relentless. His towering figure blocked their path, a menacing shadow eclipsing their fragile chance at survival. "Enough of this!" Luke shouted, summoning every last shred of courage. His grip on the gun tightened, the metal digging into his palm. He raised the weapon, uncertainty thrumming in his voice. "Don't make me use this." The intruder scoffed, a cruel smile forming as he drew closer, dripping with danger. "And what will you do, Harrington? You think that thing will protect you? You're weak, just like before." The words cut deep, slicing through the fabric of Luke's heart, a reminder of his past failures, the debts unspoken. "Stay away from my family," he roared and fired. The shot thundered like an explosion in the confined space, a piercing echo that made everyone freeze. The intruder's eyes widened, shock replacing his malice as the bullet struck home. He staggered back, pain flashing across his features before crumpling to the floor, his grip loosening, the shadows behind him collapsing away. In that moment, the terror fell silent, replaced by the hard reality of their actions. Breathless, palpable, and saturated in adrenaline. "Now go!" Luke urged again, glancing around. Clara took charge, instinctively pulling Oliver and Sarah into a tight huddle, fear mingling with urgency carving lines across her forehead. "We have to get out. Head to the side entrance." James nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "I'll cover your back." He lingered a moment, then shot a look at Luke. "You coming?" Luke hesitated over the fallen body, the weight of the man's cruelty still heavy in his mind. "I'm right behind you," he called back, swallowing hard as he turned to catch a final glimpse of his family huddling together in brotherly camaraderie, their bond the strongest spirit in this hellish broken house. Clara led the way, pushing through the door, with Luke trailing close behind. They spilled into the night air, gasping for relief, but the shadows of their home cloaked them like tar. The dark was everywhere, pooling and gathering, and Luke's heart raced as he surveyed the grounds around him. "Where do we go?" Oliver whispered, confusion laced with fear choking his voice. "The car," Clara instructed, glancing over her shoulder as panic threatened the edges of her calm. "We need to get out of here." But as they sprinted toward the driveway, a deep rumble rolled through the earth, shaking them to their core. Luke whirled around. The house loomed ominously, disarrayed and defiled. Something dark began to slither out of the shadows, creeping like smoke, an unfathomable presence, blurring the line of reality. And then a voice brushed across the air like ice. "You're never free of this. You're mine." Luke's stomach twisted as the shadows thickened, answering a call with a force so eerie and profound. "I won't let you hurt them," Luke shouted defiantly, stepping protectively in front of Clara and the kids. But the chilling laughter echoed back, wrapping around him as darkness surged forward to consume them. In that moment, Luke felt the weight of every secret, every debt he had never paid pressing down on him, a reckoning long overdue. "Stand firm," he yelled, desperation lighting his eyes. "We will fight. We're family." And together, they faced the maw of despair, hearts fused by love and rebellion. Their courage challenged the enveloping night, igniting a flicker into the darkness. A light flickered in the distance, a beacon against the storm, as if hope had decided to enter the fray. They would not let fear dictate their fates. This was no ending, but the beginning of something more, a fierce determination to claw back whatever life had left for them. Family didn't just mean blood. It meant everything. Together, they would rise again. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.